What's going on, y'all? Welcome to episode 40 of the Half Price Concessions podcast. First and foremost, the fact that we even got to 40 official episodes, much less all the bonus episodes and the side episodes we've done, it's pretty crazy to think we've actually hit the number 40 on the Richter scale. But thanks to everybody and anybody who has listened to any of the episodes, whether you've been there the entire ride or this is your first episode. We appreciate you being here. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, TuneIn, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. This week's episode gets us back to where this podcast began. Myself, Tyler Williams, sitting down with my good buddy, Mr. Buddy Payne, as we talk about issues and things surrounding racing. Most specifically this week, we talk about just what the impact of the coronavirus pandemic has been on us as race fans. Me and Buddy have both experienced racing in person and over pay-per-view and all these other things in between in a hotbed of racing here in the state of North Carolina. So this is our conversation, just talking about the way it's impacted us as race fans and our assessment of the situation. So sit back and relax. Episode 40 of the Half Price Concessions podcast is coming up in just a few moments.
Planning on doing some digging in your yard? Your simple backyard project could quickly turn dangerous. Buried underground cables and lines are just inches below the surface, so don't forget to make one very important call to 811. Calling 811 is the first step in having your buried utilities marked so you know where it is safe to dig. 811 is free, it's fast, and it's the law. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811.
Hey guys, have you heard about Anchor? Well, you should. It's the easiest way to make a podcast. First and foremost, it's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your cell phone or your computer. Anchor will even distribute your podcast for you. It takes all the work out of it. Your podcast can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Just download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. This episode of the Half Price Concessions podcast is brought to you with support from Performance Center Racing Warehouse. In addition to being the home of the PRW chassis, Performance Center offers in-house setups and consulting, plus suspension and chassis pull-down analysis, along with their fabrication shop that can reclip your race car with the fastest turnaround in the industry. Give Roger Johnson and the Performance Center team the chance to earn your racing business by calling them today at 704-838-1400 or visit them online at performancecenter.com. That's PERFORMANCENTER.com. Back on the Half Price Concessions podcast, back with Buddy Payne once again. Buddy, it is definitely the weirdest time of any of our lifetimes during all this coronavirus, COVID-19 craziness that has been going on. And it just feels like time has immensely slowed down. We're already over halfway through June. I was checking my calendar at work and I was just like, I feel like we've had coronavirus for like 2 years. I mean, this is like time has just slowed down insanely.
Yeah, and the fact that something changes almost seems every hour, especially every day, there's a new protocol or something new's announced or whatever. It's definitely been an odd time. And
with racing, which is what our podcast is based off of and is all about, it's been interesting to see how different places have had to deal with this, because I will give racing this initial credit right out of the box. At least in some form of capacity, they're open. I have been highly disappointed by Major League Baseball in particular. I'm very disappointed by them. The NBA, whoever's fault it is, I'm disappointed that they're not back. Hockey, I was a little more sympathetic to, just because the way the game is, it's a little tougher for them to space out with the way substitutions are and stuff, but I was hoping they would be back. The NFL is probably like, hey, we got till September to figure this booger out, but I'll give racing at least the credit in that at least they in some ways have found some fashion to get us some kind of product to enjoy.
I've been surprised how adaptive and how quickly they adapted to all this going on, and I guess it's a little easier. I mean, it's one person in a car. You're not trying to body somebody up playing defense or whatever the case may be with ball and stick sports. But I've been impressed with how adaptive and the different ideas and just seeing how they've been able to expand in certain areas. But it's a shame that ball and stick sports can't get their act together, and especially baseball. That's
the most naturally social distance sport there is.
Exactly. It's like, well, okay, so maybe I can't hold a runner at first now, but I mean, what else? I mean, you can spread out in the dugout, and especially when there ain't nobody in the stands, excuse me, and golf. Why can't you play golf?
Yeah.
I mean, I know they just played this weekend, but why in the world did it take so long? Of all sports, you had MMA.
Yeah.
As the first one to kind of, other than racing, to kind of come out and do something. And my goodness, you ain't social distancing in that. So
no, you're right there on cauliflower ear.
Yeah.
It's you know what, I said this on the podcast I did by myself, and I know you had some things you wanted to touch on that, but I think the main thing I remember taking away from when I did that episode was, if nothing else, this has forced people in racing to be more creative than they've ever been, because they had to be. Otherwise, I think they're guilty, just like anybody else is, of getting in a set pattern of behavior. Mm-hmm. And this has come on the scene and been like, all right, look, you can either try something crazy, radical, different, or you can sit at home and not race at all. And
most of these organizations can't afford to sit at home and not do nothing. So it forced their hand. But I've been very impressed how quickly they were able to come up with different ideas, and there have been, several instances, people had to step out and put their neck out, man. A lot of these promoters and stuff, the Lucas Oil deal with the 6 races and no fans, I mean, that was a big chunk of change. $207,000 had to come out of sponsorship, pockets and stuff, and you're just hoping you get enough viewers to help pay for a little bit of that. But yeah, it's like I guess it kind of goes along with, a good mechanic in racing, he's going to, something's going to come up, a new rule or whatever, and he's going to figure out a way to make that car do something a little different, work a little better and stuff, and they have to adapt that quick. So I guess they just took that mindset and that skill set into this.
I do want to give props to Lucas Oil. Them putting the races on Facebook Live was probably the coolest thing I've seen any of these promotions do, because obviously you're not getting any money off of Facebook Live, and not a lot of people, I think, are on Lucas Oil Racing TV. So that, when I saw them announce that, I was like, man, that's super cool, because then I can really watch it on my phone while my wife watches something on Netflix or whatever. And then Dirt on Dirt, making a lot of these shows that they were putting up on the streaming as for subscribers. You didn't have to pay a separate fee. It was just pay the $10.99 a month. I know I did that and got the monthly, and just enjoyed it. So I'll give them props on that for sure. We've both been to a couple of races during this whole thing. I think I'm on 2. I think you're on 1, unless you snuck another one in on me. Tell us a little bit about your experience. You went to Ace Speedway when they reopened, and obviously they've had a lot of controversy. But
unfortunately,
from your window, take us in what your experience was like and how you even ended up there.
That's the funnier part.
Because you're a dirt guy. You're not a You can probably count on one hand how many asphalt races you've been to in the last 5 years.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been to an asphalt race, and obviously Ace is our closest track, and I love the Turners to death, and have been wanting to support them. It's just for one reason or another just didn't make it out there, but. Initially, for me, when Jason and Robert said they were going to do something like the kind of stick it to the man rock and roll side of me, he's like, all right, this is like a little tiny revolution, I want to go support it. But honestly, the big push behind that, surprisingly enough, was my wife, and she tolerates my racing, and she shows some interest. She'll ask me where they're running tonight, that kind of thing. But she's not a fan, I wouldn't say. But no, it was her birthday weekend. and she was tired of being cooped up in the house. She's like, I want to go out and I want to be around people. I said, well, I guarantee there's going to be plenty of people over there.
Yep.
And I think she saw it on Facebook or whatever, and she kept asking me, like, I didn't push one time. I didn't ask her one time she wanted to go. She kept like, hey, do you think we can do this? Hey, do you think they're going to be able to run? Do you think they're going to shut it down? I was like, look, as long as the weather's good and they don't shut them down, I'm all for it. So I allow her once a year to eat at her favorite vegan restaurant in Carborough, and we drove Chapel Hill, excuse me. So we drove all the way to Chapel Hill, like ate as quick as we could, and drove from Chapel Hill all the way out to Altamont. And we got there, and I mean it was ridiculously packed. And I feel, timing wise, I'm like, if you don't get there at 5 o'clock, you don't get a seat. And of course,
Yeah.
they had the long lines and whatnot. But on the serious note, like we had talked about it with the whole social distancing stuff, and I told her, I was like, those grandstands are going to be slam jammed. I said, I think it would be best for us if we, sit somewhere around the track where we can be in the lawn chair. And she's like, I would prefer that anyway. And of course, me having the long legs I have, I prefer sitting in the lawn chair anyway. So we went on the back stretch, finally found a place to park because it had rained some that week, and I'm sure there's a lot of folks that got stuck. But and we got in, and we sat right there coming off of turn 2 in front of that brick wall deal, and it was good to be back in the atmosphere and to see fans and all that stuff. But it was just good to see friends, like your race friends. I know different numbers have come out, but we'll just say somewhere between 2,000 and 4,000 folks there. And I'm standing in line to get a ticket. Hey, buddy, and turn around. There's so and so. We go in, go use the bathroom. There's somebody standing in line in the bathroom. I hadn't seen them forever. We go set our chairs down, 2 seats down is the Bledsoes. Hadn't seen them in forever. So it was just nice to see people, and that unfortunately, you lose contact or you only talk to them at racetracks, kind of thing. But yeah, just looking across and seeing those stands full was an awesome sight. The amount of cars that were there, just the overall support was just it made me happy and excited for the Turners, because they took a big swing to do that, and it made me very proud of our sheriff to allow it to go on. I think they had all the different protocol stuff set up, whether you wanted to follow it or not. I saw maybe 1 out of every 10 person was wearing a mask. We did not. And we sat in our chairs. We were by ourselves, and saw some good racing. Enjoyed it. And it was fun. It was like it was a community thing, but it felt like we were a part of a tiny revolution there. And that was just, I was proud to have been there. I was proud to experience it. And I hate the fallout from all of that stuff, but it was a great time. I really enjoyed it.
I'm about to say, I don't think there's ever been any other excuse for A Speedway to end up on the New York Post and the Washington Post,
Yeah.
whether good or bad.
Yeah. Whether real news or fake news, I guess.
Yeah. Because it's funny you mentioned about seeing people. That's one of the things I took away from early on in the deal. I think it was April. I went and announced the race at 311 Motor Speedway, and at the time they weren't letting people in the stands. They had some people that had their trucks backed up, and the pits was pretty much where you went, whether you were watching or participating. And even just walking around getting my information, I was trying to just use common sense with it, not interact more than I had to. And it was good just to be around racing people. And there were people there that had come to race. Like I talked to one guy who had brought his crate late model down from Delaware. He had driven, I think it was like 9 hours to come run a 20-lap race or whatever at 311, and then seeing people that I knew. And like you said, a lot of these people, we live in different parts of the state. We got jobs, we got wives, we got husbands, we got other hobbies, and a lot of times we only see each other at the racetrack. So that, like you said, for me, that was enjoyable, because you really do lose touch with a lot of those people. And we had the races. 311 infamously had the 2 modifieds get stacked on top of each other. One caught fire. We realized real quick that 311 needed to upgrade the fire equipment. Hopefully they've done that. And like you said, it was just good to have a sense of normalcy, because I think, if nothing else, that's been the thing that I've just missed the most, as maybe just even as a person, was how much I miss going to races, going to ball games, going to hockey games, and how much I really leaned on that as my have fun time.
Yeah.
Because I don't do too much crazy stuff other than work and go home to my wife.
Yeah, it's. I think it's forced us all to just kind of see our priorities and our perspectives on different things. And I mean, honestly, just my line of work and stuff, like nothing's really changed for me as far as, I'm still working, several hours a week, and I'm obviously thankful for all that. I'm still able to pull a paycheck and keep the bills paid and all that kind of stuff. Good Lord's blessed me in that area, but it's I don't get much downtime, but it's the stuff in the off time. It's like, man, I'd love to go here or go there or go see this, go watch that, but it's just not available. So, you kind of stick around the house and, do projects around here and all that kind of stuff. But, yeah, I don't think I know sports in general is a big part of my life, but I don't think I realized how much that was the source of entertainment for me, going to races, going to a ball game, all that kind of stuff.
And without sports, we leaned on things like Tiger King,
Yeah.
which is a whole different deal. Real quick, before we get too far down the path of what we've been seeing lately in the racing we've been watching lately, this won't take long at all. Let's give a quick hit on what they tried to give us as a substitute while all these racing leagues were trying to figure out how to put races on during this thing, and that was the iRacing and the virtual racing.
Yeah.
And I'll say right off the top, it's super cool. The graphics are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's pretty darn cool that you can get in there, and they've got all the different options. Like I remember one time I went to Thomas Scott's house, and he let me do a IndyCar at Martinsville, and obviously I destroyed the car. But I mean, it was super cool, and they had it on TV and they had it on Dirt Vision, and the option was out there. I got to be honest, bud. I watched a few of them. It was kind of cool. It didn't do a thing for me on entertainment. I'm right there with Michael Rigsby of Dirt on Dirt. Cool. God bless your heart if you enjoyed it. I didn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't for me.
Yeah. It was a tough one for me at first because I always picked on people, and I still will, that watch poker on TV. You're watching other people play cards. That's pretty pathetic, I guess, would be the word in my opinion. You're so lazy, you gotta watch somebody else play cards. But then, like, my video game buddies, like, I'll ask them, like, what you playing and stuff, and they spend more time watching other people play video games than playing themselves. Though, like the Twitch and all these other stuff, I'm like, you spend how much time watching someone else play a video game? And so, again, I guess it was just cruel fate. It's like, now I'm sitting here watching other people play a video game. But for me, the entertaining value for me, and I think they hit a home run with, was getting real drivers, driving cars that look like they're real cars, and doing a top-notch production with the studio stuff, and having, the real announcers, Johnny Gibson, with the sprint cars and stuff, and then, the NASCAR, like the Fox Sports stuff, having Clint Boyer and Jeff Gordon on there. That was more entertaining to me. And I think in general, like, because people didn't realize, I'm willing to bet people didn't realize how funny Clint Boyer was before all this. But you saw him away from the track. You kind of saw him in his natural habitat, if you will. And the dude's hilarious, and he kept, joking and everything like that. And that part, that was more entertaining to me than the actual racing itself. And I watched the stuff they were doing on CBS, and I think it switched over to Fox Sports, if I'm not mistaken. And I watched the dirt stuff, the sprint cars and the late models. They do the doubleheaders there. And like I said, being real people, and it was cool. Like Corey Gordon, the guy that we see run crate late models down Cherokee and those places, and he's getting interviewed by Jeff Gordon. That he'd never had that opportunity beforehand. Trent Ivey, all these guys that we know and we see run. That part of it was cool. Seeing, like, Scott Bloomquist struggling and hitting the wall and all that kind of stuff. All that was entertaining to me. I watched it and I kept up with it. But after about 3 or 4 weeks, I'm like, okay, I need something.
I'm done with this.
And hey, but kudos to them for the top-notch production, the iRock deal that they started doing on the Wednesday nights. That was pretty cool, and bringing in the other facets of iRacing with the road racing and the off-road trucks and all that stuff. I thought it was great, but entertaining value, like I said, after a couple of weeks, I'm like, all right, I need something a little different here.
I think if nothing else, iRacing definitely is the best commercial they ever had. Like, I would not get any entertainment out of watching it, but it would at least make me think, like, maybe I can't afford that sim. I mean, I probably wouldn't get the big rig like these other guys. And whoever was making these rigs, they had to, like, they just bought Christmas for the next 3 years. Yes. They were selling all these rigs to all these people and, at least showing off the software. And on the NASCAR side, I thought that at least one cool thing was it sped up the process of them getting North Wilkesboro scanned and available. Yeah. And we'll probably never get to see another race at North Wilkesboro again, but at least it was there, and it was, it was cool to see.
I think the other great, for the dirt stuff, I think the great thing was being able to have a Dirt Vision commercial and to open just the general public's eyes to what is this. And they sold a ton of subscriptions for all that. And being on the CBS Sportsnet, that parlayed them into, now they're showing, over the next couple of weeks, they're showing 3 live dirt races. And they're running the sprint cars and late models together at Cedar Lake. So that would have never happened if it weren't for the iRacing stuff. So, that's awesome. If it's growing the sport, then I'm all for it.
Yeah. Of course, there were a few not so good things that happened during it. Obviously, Kyle Larson got in some trouble, lost his ride. I think Bubba Wallace quit in the middle of one of them and lost a real sponsor, even though he quit a video game, which I still think that was probably the most absurd thing.
As a video game player, I feel for him.
Yeah, I've rage quit plenty of times.
I have gone through several $60 controllers.
The fact that you lost a real sponsor. But anyway, that's why I don't use Blue Emu. I use Icy Hot like a real man.
Like a real man, yeah.
But now, as we're about halfway through June recording this, NASCAR's been back for some time. They've done a lot of the Sunday, Wednesdays, and the double headers to catch up on some of their schedule. Lucas Oil had races the previous weekend at Cherokee and Smoky Mountain, and they're having fans back. And the World of Outlaw Sprint Cars, I know when they ran at Peevely, they had some fans, and Iowa had some fans at Knoxville. So you're starting to see some people coming back, which is super cool. I think the biggest thing I feel for these series is they're really having to just hopscotch where they can even run, because a lot of these series they want to run all across the country, and because it's really up to the states and really more the local authorities whether they can even have races, it's really pigeonholed the schedule down, which, I mean, they're doing what they have to, but it makes me feel for a lot of these tracks that aren't going to get to have races just because their municipalities and their states aren't going to allow it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough situation that they're being put in, and I mean, and then you got to think about the fans. Like me personally, me and Dad had 2 big trips planned this year, and right now both those races aren't on the schedule. Now that's not to say that they won't come back, but I can't, if you just tell me this week, hey, we're going to run here next week, I can't take off of work and get hotel rooms and plan all that kind of stuff. So it's tough for fans like me who travel, out of state most of the time to go watch a race and all. But, I can't complain about it because it's not, it's nobody's fault. They're doing the best they can. It is kind of neat to see where they're going to show up next, and like these announcements. I mean, it's pretty exciting. It's almost like a silly season kind of thing. Like, well, what's going to happen today? The Knoxville race Saturday night. That's when they announced the upcoming 3 weeks with the sprint cars and stuff and being on TV. It's like, man, that's a bombshell newsworthy item right there. And you're also seeing a lot of tracks having to do double headers now, like, all the sprint car stuff, Friday, Saturday nights. I know the late models are running Bulls Gap this weekend, Friday, Saturday night. So at least it's making it worthwhile for the drivers and the crews, to travel. At least we're going to get 2 opportunities here to make some money, and the fans as well, 4 tracks that are allowing to have fans in.
Yeah, it's basically just survival right now for these series and stuff. I mean, Lucas Oil had to go down, like you said, run 3 races at Gold Isles and then 3 races at East Bay, which helped, I think, for all of us that wish let's just run East Bay every week.
Absolutely,
it's just a
man.
further reminder how amazing East Bay is and how sad we'll all be when it's gone.
I was about to say, it's going to be gone here in 4 years, and we got 3 bonus races there. So, you know what? That's awesome. And 3 heck of a races, too, down there.
Oh,
Man, that place always puts on a good show.
I was about to say, I think the other thing that has been the most, probably one of the things I'll remember the most about this thing is, I'll go ahead and put it down now. I hate to be Debbie Downer, but it's just honest. There ain't going to be no racing at Bowman Gray Stadium.
Yeah.
And that to me is crazy. Even if I know not everybody likes the style of racing there, and some people don't even call it racing, but it's still the most heavily populated racetrack in the state of North Carolina outside of Charlotte. And the fact that they're not going to get to having any racing there at all is just like, it's like you took an eraser and just erased a mark of history. Like, this year just didn't exist.
Yeah, you know my feelings about Bowman Gray, and it is a shame though, because that place does pack in so many folks and all, but there's just no convenient way to space folks out. And then by the time, who knows how these phases are going to be working out, with the state and the government stuff. But by the time they may even be able to allow X amount of fans in there, it's going to be football season. So they're not going to be able to do anything then. And that's a shame. I'm sure that's been a big money hit for that community in general.
I think another thing also that's going to come out of this, which racing in general for the racetracks, I said it on my previous episode that most of them don't operate at some great big ginormous profit. Most of them barely get by. Probably the majority of them probably lose money. And it's just something that people do because they love racing and they love the sport. I think one unfortunate consequence out of this is you're probably going to see a lot of these places just not be able to reopen. They were kind of barely hanging on, getting by. And unfortunately, this might, hopefully I'm wrong, but this might unfortunately be the nail in some of their coffins.
Yeah, and a lot of tracks, they rely on that one big event that they have as their moneymaker to help them get by through the rest of the year. So as you see these crown jewels and these 20,000 plus to win races getting canceled or postponed, but who knows if they're even going to be able to reschedule them this year. That's going to do a lot of tracks in because they're definitely going to be in a negative. That weekly show ain't making you money.
No,
it's when you can pack the stands out, run that 3-day show. That's your moneymaker.
Here's a question to put forward to y'all. With this craziness and with the heck it's played on the schedule, just for the National Dirt Series, do you still crown a champion in this? I've seen some people raising this question just because, like you said, you're having to piece the schedule together week by week. You're probably still not going to get to the number of events that you plan to run. Mm-hmm. And you're not running a lot of the tracks that you were planning to run. You're having to just kind of run where you can. Is this still an environment where you crown a champion and just say, everybody will know this year was special? Or do you put it on hold for a year and make an exhibition? What do you think?
Well, they're all still accumulating points. And so they're all, treating it as if we're still going to crown a champion. I'm sure you're always going to have a naysayer, put an asterisk beside it. There's already people talking about that. If this NBA thing kicks off where they're playing down in Orlando, that championship's going to have an asterisk beside it. And to each their own on the opinion on that. Me personally, I think it's the amount of events you get in. If you're running 2 a weekend and you can run all the way through November like you're used to, I'm perfectly fine with you crowning a champion. If you want to put an asterisk beside it, again, that's your own prerogative. But me personally, everybody's still there. It's the same guys you're running against. No, you're not running 90 sprint car races this year. You might run 40, 50 at most, but you know what? You still ran against the same guys. Everybody had equal opportunity to earn the same amount of points. I guess on the individual basis, you do have some guys who are good at certain tracks and, like sprint cars, they weren't able to do their Western swing this year. And you got some guys who are great at those California bull rings, and they may struggle at some of these bigger tracks. But you know what? Everybody was dealt the same hand. Yeah, everybody's got to play the same thing, so I'm perfectly fine with it. Now, if we're running, 15, 20 races total for the year, then no. Let's just run for money and call it what it is. But, for the amount that they've been able to get in, over the last month or so, I think we'll be okay towards the end of the year, unless, the next great plague comes down that prevents us from doing anything.
I think the thing I'm missing in the NASCAR schedule the most is the fact that neither of the road courses are going to get to run because they're in the two worst states for them to be in. One's in California, which is never going to reopen, and one's in New York, which was probably hit the hardest by this thing. So, but I agree. Everybody's under the same blanket. If you want to do it, cool. If not, it don't hurt my feelings. I don't necessarily. I mean, I watch people run for championships, but more, I'm watching to see a good race.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not too hung up on if they crown a champion or if they don't.
I'm fine. I hope they do, because everybody, like I said, has been put in the same boat here, and I don't think it'd be any different than when you have years like last year that was plagued so much by rain, and my goodness, every weekend races were getting canceled, and so you ran, maybe 3/4 of your schedule at most, and we still crowned the champion. So I'm perfectly fine with doing it. I think it's deserving.
Here's one. What of the races that have been ran that we've watched, where, maybe more specifically, which track has it been the weirdest for you to see without fans? Like, which one have you just been like, gosh, I didn't think it looked so weird without people, but it looks weird? What track hits you?
For dirt stuff, when sprint cars went to Knoxville. I mean, as massive as that place is anyway, but to see nobody there, to see them wearing masks and all this kind of stuff, that was, doing the interviews and all, that one was crazy, because even when they're there, not for the Knoxville Nationals, but when they're just running a regular show, you got 50-plus cars showing up, and at least the front stretch stands are going to have a good amount of people in there. So that one was weird. On the NASCAR side, it was Bristol. And that one was weird because I went to Bristol last year, so that one's kind of fresh on my mind. And no, it wasn't a sold-out crowd then, but my goodness, that place, it was pretty packed. So those two were definitely the weirdest for me.
Yeah, I'm about to say, I think Buddy's going to have to take his microphone clip off real quick. His dog's eating a really nice pillow that his wife had in the chair. I think on my end of the spectrum, it has to be the Eldora Speedway, with running the Eldora Stream, with the insane attendance figures that track has put up in the last couple of years. I feel like every time I've watched a Kings Royal or a Dream or a World, Dustin Jarrett's been on the streaming, or whoever has been on the streaming, talking about new attendance record set at Eldora, new record, all these people, and they do the things where everybody takes their cell phone light out, and it's insane how many people were there. And then when they ran the stream, I was just like, man, this looks weird. It just, and I'm just glad they got to have any kind of race. I enjoyed the stream immensely. It was another reminder that Roger Slack and the people at Tony Stewart's Eldora Speedway prepare an amazing racetrack. But that one, to me, I was just like, man, I'm so used to seeing all these people sitting in lawn chairs and in the bleachers, and there's no one there but the drivers and the teams.
The kicker for me watching the stream with Eldora was when they showed the 50-50 and it was less than $1,000. It's like, man,
yeah,
that's crazy, because I think last year it was like $70-some thousand for the 50-50 deal. And yeah, that's a weird one, because luckily I've been able to go to Eldora twice, both for the World and for the Dream, and oh yeah, it's just the massive amount of campers and just people all over the place there. That was kind of odd. I think they did a fantastic job still creating that atmosphere, or at least putting some hype behind it. And then what's always the kicker for all these events is it a good race? And my goodness, we saw a heck of a race right there.
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it was a good one.
I think also, like you touched on earlier about Dirt Vision getting the exposure through the iRacing stuff, maybe more of a reminder to people, to fans that have always just been like, streaming's cool, but I'd rather go in person, that it is good to invest in these streaming services. Yeah. And I forgot how many there were. Dirt Vision, Dirt on Dirt, Speed Shift, Pit Road TV,
Flow.
Speed 51, Flow Racing. I mean, and like I said on the previous episode, and I'd like to get your take on it. I talked about how, if anything I've learned from this is that our regional form of racing doesn't fit into live TV like NASCAR does. We're built for streaming, and in my opinion, this has just further reminded me that let's just go streaming. Don't worry about it being live on CBS Sports Network. They do the tape delay stuff, and that's cool, but streaming's, I think, the best form for us because we just don't fit in a time capsule. What do you think?
Yeah, the live stuff is, it's easy. Like a NASCAR race, you have a hard start time. You know exactly how many laps are going to run. They're, typical race is 3.5, 4 hours. You're done. You can run a commercial break and be fine. If you miss 20 laps, 10 laps, whatever during the commercial, it's no big deal. But on a dirt race, especially if you have support divisions, all this kind of stuff, your hot laps are scheduled for 6, 7 o'clock. Depending on the track, they might start at 6 or 7 o'clock on the advertised time. But that show's going to last till 11 o'clock at best, so you can't put that on, for 4 straight hours. So streaming's great because, like, what I'll do is I'll watch, and when the class that I want to see run is qualifying, when they're on the track doing whatever, I'll watch it. And then when they're done, go about doing whatever else. And so that's good. You can come back to it whenever, and you're not going to miss anything. But like the sprint car race, it wasn't Peevely. It's 2 weeks ago. I can't remember. Little small track, and the whole feature was done in 6 minutes and 48 seconds.
Oh, that was it Beaver Creek?
Yeah, Beaver Dam.
Beaver Dam. Yeah,
Beaver Dam. In
of
Wisconsin.
course, you picked the one that my driver lost.
But that race was done in less than 7 minutes.
Yeah.
You can't, if you run a 2-3 minute commercial break, you missed half the race. So everybody's like, oh, it should be on TV. Oh, it should be on TV. Well, it's just it's a very hard thing because you don't have hard start times, and it's not they start here and then they race and then they're done. You've got hot laps, break, qualifying, break, 4 to 6 heat races, break, 2 B mains, break, A main. What if we need to prep the track? All this kind of stuff. So yes, streaming's great. As far as the local stuff, this is my opinion on it. And because I've been a race fan for so long, and I feel like I'm to the point now to where I don't mind picking and choosing where I go and what I go to spend my money on to watch, I'm not going to pay to watch a local race. That's just me. I'm not going to pay, even at $5-10, I'm not going to pay that to watch a local race. If it's a national tour, if it's a bigger race, if it's, if I know certain drivers are going to be there, absolutely, I'm paying for it. My goodness, I'd be afraid to know how many streaming services I'm currently subscribed to and the amount of money I spend a month. But I do it for that reason because I want to watch that. But, if Caraway's showing their local race this week for $10, I'm not even considering that. It's just the entertainment value is not there for me.
Yeah. Going forward, and we'll wrap up on this. If whatever event is still out there in the future, if you can save one event where this one will be run like normal, like it was in 2019 and all the years before, where we can go and we can enjoy and have some sense of normalcy, what event that hasn't occurred yet that's still out there floating in the calendar, if you could save, would you save?
Now, is this a race I'm going to?
Yeah. One that you can go to.
Oh,
just down the road in the future.
Well, I mean, the low-hanging fruit there would be the World Finals, just because it's tradition and, the 15 to 20,000 people that show up to that thing. I've been to all but one. That's the first one that comes to mind. I had plans on going to the throwback weekend at Port Royal this year. But that one's still kind of up in the air right now. I know they just recently, I think 2 weeks ago, started running their weekly show up there again with, I believe, limited fans, if I'm not mistaken on that. So I'd hate to miss that one, but that's fine because it's a new event. If I miss it, whatever, I'll catch it again at another time. But yeah, World Finals, man, because that's the race, man. That's the event to go to. There's a handful of races I go to every year, the big ones at Virginia, Withville, all that kind of stuff. But, nothing compares to that, to the finals. What about you?
World Finals would be one, and then I'd probably say the late model race at Martinsville.
Yeah.
As far as the asphalt side. Snowball Derby mixed in there as well, but I've never, saved up the money to go travel down to Florida for Snowball Derby. But Martinsville late model race, 25,000, 30,000 people in there to watch late models, not watch Cup guys.
Yeah.
And World Finals as well. If I could just hone in and put a bubble on those two, because it was at the Martinsville Cup race, they I don't think they couldn't sell hot dogs. Like, they couldn't sell food. They're trying to, part of limiting the chances of exposure was you couldn't have hot dogs. And I was just like, that feels like a crime to not get to eat a bunch of $2
That's crossing the line right
gut
there.
busting hot dogs in Martinsville.
I'm sure the custodians were happy about that.
The water system got a break. Yeah. But man, it's just, I think if nothing else, I think to put a bow on it, I think we've all just learned how much there was to appreciate. Like even on the day we're recording this, they opened up. They were opening up a new-ish summer collegiate league here in North Carolina, Old North State League, and I was begging and pleading with my wife. I was like, if it don't rain, which it did,
yes.
Can we go watch the Swepsonville Sweepers? I just want to go watch a ball game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was only 25 fans allowed, and I'm like, I can't drive an hour and risk that, but I would have killed to go on a baseball game.
Yeah, I saw the notification, and it's funny, actually. A guy I work with, he lives like a half mile away from there, and he's a baseball fan. And I'm like, hey, man, you heard about this, blah, blah, blah. He's just clueless, didn't know nothing about it or whatever. So I pulled it up and showed it to him. And sadly enough, they said they were moving the game up to 5 o'clock due to, inclement weather. It's 4:30 and it's like pouring rain. I'm like, I don't think that one's going to work out. But
no.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get back to some live events. But thank God for the streaming and what we do have.
Thank you for listening to yet another edition of the Half Price Concessions Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Overcast, Himalaya, Castro, whatever podcast app you're using. Please hit the subscribe button. If there's a section to leave us a rating and review, please leave us a good one. It would really help us out a ton. Also, if you're listening on our YouTube page, hit the subscribe button there. That way, you'll get notified every time we put out new episodes. Also, you can email the show. The email address is halfpricedconcessionspodcast@gmail.com. You can email us questions, concerns, ideas for future episodes, anything and everything. We'll definitely respond to it, and we just appreciate you listening. Also, if you have friends or family who want to listen but don't want to go to YouTube and don't have a podcast app, you can listen to every episode on our website. That's www.anchor.fm/HPC podcast. Thank you for listening. My name is Tyler Williams, and I hope that you have a great day.